And we are live.
No, do it again. Do it again. Do it again.
And we are live.
Absolutely gorgeous. The Fantasmagorium show is proud to present Faster and More Intense, a retrospective and review of the directorial works of George Lucas. Francis said, George, make a normal movie. What did he do? He captured an era. I am Scotty R37. Kat is here, and Steve got by the Wolfman.
Yes.
How are you, ladies and gentlemen?
Very good.
I wanted to keep it brief because this is an interesting movie that I think echoes. I saw this movie influencing a lot of movies that I have seen, hangout movies.
Yeah.
A night in the life of films. Tell me that Dazed and Confused is not a remake of American Graffiti.
Right.
Basically.
It inspired one of my favorite movies. And it's in this genre, or subgenre, if you want to call it, which is Hollywood Nights.
Mm-hmm.
Hollywood Nights?
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen it.
Oh, you got to see it. It's awesome. Funny.
What is it? Who directed it?
I don't know who the director is offhand.
Okay, fair enough. But it is like it is clearly an influence, sure. And not just in the sort of like feeling of the movie as being a hangout movie, a night in the life of, last night of high school, going off to war or whatever. Like this is also the way that a movie is sort of structured and flows. It almost feels like a symphony with what would go on to be called like a jukebox soundtrack, but used so very specifically. Yeah. Like the music fits it. And
very few movies capture an era like this movie.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, okay, so when was this flick released?
1973.
And so they were talking about 11 years earlier.
Yes.
So I just want to put this into context, and it was something that I thought of when I saw the poster. What were you doing in 2013? It's just the weird nostalgia. It's like an early nostalgia.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And a very specific one, too, because this movie is about, like, cruising culture.
Yeah.
Mm. Well, not like Peter Hyams cruising.
No. The other kind.
No, the cars.
The cars. Cruising, dude.
But it has so many people. Cindy Williams, I think, would have made a great Princess Leia.
Sure.
Maybe.
Guys, what do you think about the movie? When was the first time you saw it?
Probably 1997.
Steve?
I saw it late 70s.
Okay.
I don't know exactly when, but it was late 70s. Probably. I saw it with my dad. My dad was a car guy, the cruising culture, worked on his own muscle cars and shit. So,
yeah.
He, all of these, and that's where I got Hollywood Nights and this movie. I mean, he loved these movies because this was his bailiwick. So, I think we went and saw it. God, I want to say it was probably 7 or 8. So yeah, mid to late 70s, the first time I saw it. Back when movies stayed in theaters for years.
Oh man. I was thinking that when I was watching this. I was like, I'd love to see this movie in the theater. I saw it. First time I ever saw American Graffiti was 2 hours ago.
Nah, really?
Yeah, first time
Really?
ever.
Wow.
What do
Yeah.
you think?
Spoilers. Fucking loved it, yo.
Right? Yeah, it's a really good movie. Kat, is this your favorite movie?
It is.
It is. Yeah.
A pluses.
Yeah.
No, it was.
Cars, nostalgia, amazing directing. You know,
Yeah.
Really
You know,
good
it's-
characters.
good characters.
Flipping genre tropes on their head. Very well edited. Pacing's there. Excellent soundtrack.
Great
and it's
sound.
really funny. And it's
Yeah.
still funny.
Yeah, it's really funny.
It is hilarious. And the thing is that like sometimes, with like Prometheus, I say it's a beautiful movie that you could watch with the sound off.
Sure.
And this is as well. Like you can watch this as a visual
Beautifully
without
shot.
any sound whatsoever.
But I would retort, you have to have the sound because the soundtrack is killer.
I
wouldn't.
you could watch it without the dialogue and the sound effect, just the music and the sound of the cars. That would do it.
Yep.
Well, and a lot of the dialogue is sort of blown out by the music and the engine roars.
Right.
And so it's like what people are doing without actually hearing what they're doing.
It's
like
funny.
there are parts where I couldn't hear shit.
Scotty says, he said, are you going to join? He asked me privately, are you going to join us for Happy Days, the movie?
Happy Days, the movie.
I'm like, it's not exactly Happy Days, the movie. And that was before you watched the movie, by the way. That was yesterday.
Yes.
I just figured you had seen this movie. So
never seen it.
Oh,
Today
yeah.
was the first day.
So I ask you now, do you still think it's Happy Days, the movie?
No, not at all. No, I think it's more interesting than Happy Days.
Yeah, it is. It's a really good, really well done film.
Yeah.
It's like you said, it's a hangout movie. It's like a night in the life type of movie, but it was also a movie that he wrote around the songs. Like he picked the songs for the scenes first and then wrote the scenes after that.
You could say the same thing about Tarantino.
This one came first.
This movie is wall to wall songs, though. Tarantino doesn't usually have. He'll have a couple songs, but not.
No, but that's what I understand what you're saying, but if
I mean, you could
George
say that
Lucas
about
did it
Edgar
more.
Wright does that too. Edgar Wright does that too, and both, I'd say that Edgar Wright and Tarantino both cribbed that from George Lucas from this film.
And this was a good script that he wrote. Granted, he did outsource the Steve and Laurie storyline to Gloria and Willard Hayek, because I'd say that probably would be the weakest storyline, but it's still.
Oh, Mackenzie Phillips. Whatever happened to her? I don't know.
Like a lot of people in this movie, only a couple of them went on to have really big career, like Ron Howard and Harrison Ford are pretty much the two that combined.
Well, Richard Dreyfuss ain't no slouch.
But he kind of disappeared after the mid-90s or whatever, and then he just kind of.
Yeah, he kind of pops up here and there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but also he had been in a bunch of, like, that's the thing. I sometimes miss film actors, but then I realize that they made a lot of money and they don't have to do anything anymore.
Correct.
Well, there's a lot of, speaking of which, there's a lot of people who wonder that if Star Wars had not been successful, would the George Lucas who made American Graffiti keep doing stuff like that? Like stuff that's that. I mean, they are all three are experimental films, like THX, American Graffiti, Star Wars. Like every movie he's personally directed or tried to handle, even Indiana Jones, which he didn't direct, was all an experimental idea that he's been playing around with. But people will say, yeah, it is something like, we do wish there could be an alternate universe where we'd see what George Lucas's movies would have been like if Star Wars didn't turn out to be the big success that it was.
I think he'd be a auteurist director. I think he would. I don't think it wouldn't be a big franchise. I think it would be these kind of films.
Yeah,
it's just my guess is that it wouldn't be big tentpole films. It would be more films in this vein.
Oh, good.
But who knows?
Cinema would turn into PBS in the 1980s.
But can you imagine all the things we wouldn't have? All the advancements that he made in just film itself, Photoshop.
Oh, shit.
I mean, Jesus, everything that came out of that.
Pixar Computer even came out of Lucasfilm as well.
Yeah, Avid, all of that. So,
Avid,
I mean,
yeah, non-linear video
the
editing.
fact that he
biggest
did
contribution.
Star Wars and made it, you know, and it was as big as it was, and what came after that. I mean, it revolutionized the film industry.
And well, absolutely, absolutely. And I understand what you're saying, and I agree wholeheartedly with what you're saying. But what is being posited is what artistry. If some people say that restraint is the birthplace of creativity, like if you, we can't do it that way, so we have to do it. The shark doesn't work. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll make a better movie that way. And what if George Lucas had restraint? Would we get more stuff like this that was frenetically directed and cut and interesting and maybe not so, I don't know.
Well, this movie was also cut by Verna Fields and Marshall Lucas, who had a lot to do with
Marsha
coming together and working, which was the same thing with Star Wars. But what I like about this one,
whatever happened to Marsha?
She got a lot of money into divorce settlement and edited a couple more movies.
Was this American Zoetrope? Was this where he was?
No, it was his own film.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Zoetrope already folded. Zoetrope folded after THX.
Okay.
Because Fox demanded their $300,000 investment back, and that's why Coppola made The Godfather, because he didn't have the money to pay. They didn't have the money to pay back, so that's why he did that.
I wasn't sure if it was before or after this film, but yeah, thanks for clarifying that.
So that's another thing. We could thank George Lucas for The Godfather.
Exactly.
Getting made. PvP.
I just wanted to say hello to the chat. We got Pleasant Valley Picker CA. Hello, sir. I'm gonna have a little side eye with my co-hosts and see if they're okay with you coming up.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
How do you pronounce this?
Kushida Fan 1029. I solo doggy killer, no difference.
Oi. PvP says, not in a galaxy far, far away, but in real life, in real time.
Yeah.
Well, no, it was 1962. That wasn't real. Let's make America American Graffiti. Let's make American Graffiti again. Did you guys ever see more American Graffiti?
No, I don't. You know what? I take that back. I think I did. I can't remember it though.
I did. They presented, each storyline has wildly different like cinematography presentation. Like one, you're watching it through pinstripes, like a stripe and then a black bar, and then another part of the image and a black bar, and weird different anamorphic lenses styling and 1/16 millimeter. It's very weird, and the storylines are okay. And most of them are forgettable. The only storyline I really liked was Terry the Toad in Vietnam. Because spoilers, it has a happy ending. Contrary to what this
Guys, spoilers.
Yeah.
For American Graffiti. Canadian Spider-Man is here. Oh, yes. 1973. The year I first discovered myself. Oh.
Me too, is my birth year.
Nice.
Were you born in 73?
March 25th, 1973.
You look younger.
Thank you.
No worries. And thank you so much, Spidey. Hail and good evening, PvP and Kat and Steve, I'm sure. PvP says, I saw it when it came out with my sister and mom in the theater. My sister loved it so much as she was 15 years older and was a Bobby Soccer. See, that's crazy. Like the when they go to the hop.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just love how it's so wholesome and also so like there's an unexpected ham pressed.
Well, yeah, that's why Milner's like, yeah, you can't go back there. Like the freshman hop, that's what he calls it. And that feels very much like a 50s thing. And you know, they came all the way from Stockton.
Right.
But yes, he gets it.
Your car's uglier than I am.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, wait, that came out wrong.
DVP is here. Ahoy, Trip. I just finished watching American Graffiti for the first time ever. about 2 minutes ago.
You
Yeah,
got a
man.
goal.
Same
Nice.
deal, yo.
Is this what they call copping a feel?
Well, okay.
Uh,
What was your favorite scene in the movie? Do you have a favorite scene?
I do like the Wizard of Oz aspect of it when Kurt goes to see the Wolfman.
Yeah.
But also just about the entirety of the Toad and Tubby storyline. That's just really funny.
Scotty, I know you just saw it. Do you have a favorite scene that you something that stood out?
I really enjoyed, and this is, it's weird. Like, it's not something that I am happy about it. I think that it's an interesting character portrayal between Milner, the character Milner, and the actress Mackenzie Phillips. When it's dudes trying to pick up a chick, and then the absolute jailbait shows up, and then just it becomes more than just like he was just trying to nail something, and then it actually became a relationship. And it developed. It was interesting. I loved most of Milner, like a lot of Milner. I love Kurt. Like, Kurt is what keeps me grounded. Opie is an asshole, but Milner is the one who is like, he's trying to prove something. And not only to other people, but to himself. And when he does, like, and again, Mackenzie Phillips is so fucking young, but when he does, he warms to her. It's not like he's forcing himself upon her. He is oddly flirting, like the biggest, toughest guy that we've seen in the movie, who's gonna smack all of his friends, is just like, I just hope you like me. It's just, I don't know, it's endearing.
But he does spend pretty much that whole storyline trying to shirk her. Like when he takes her to the junkyard and tells her all these probably bullshit stories about, oh, that's this guy who got hit by a drunk driver. Oh, this is the guy who killed all those 8 school kids. And I'm just laughing because it's his attempt to, scare the hell out of her to get her to go home. Yeah. And especially when she's like, so your dad doesn't let you go out late at night. It's good. But it's funny because, like you said, he's like, he's just looking to get a score and, badass street racer guy, and he ends up actually having fun with this 12-year-old because he's 32, and you're right, he is looking to prove something, because it's like, okay, you've probably graduated high school 14 years ago, and you're still, just kind of driving around, hanging around with high school kids, because all his friends are like high school kids. Like, okay, that's a little weird, but.
Oh, it's absolutely weird, but it's like, all right. I
was just gonna say the same thing.
Yeah. Yep. File the ticket in that CS folder there. What's that? Chicken shit. That's what it is. Oh God,
this is interesting. Trip says, I enjoyed it. Cool flick. I can't believe George Lucas directed something that was actually better than Star Wars in his career. I
don't know if it was better than Star Wars.
I think this is
very good.
As much as I love,
it's a good argument.
Yeah.
As much as I love Star Wars, there's a certain dip in that movie when, you keep building on this really great ensemble that's just electric, but then the finale is all of them are thrown on the side and it's just Luke. And for the first big chunk of the finale, it's, Luke sitting around in his X-Wing watching the other Rebel pilots, do their thing. And it's kind of like, to me, it kind of sucked the air out of it a little bit. Kind of like I saw True Lies for the first time a few months ago. And it's great, the chemistry between Jamie Lee Curtis and Schwarzenegger and the humor, but she gets kind of misses out on most of the climax.
Yeah.
And then it, at that point, kind of becomes like, okay, generic 80s type action movie. But with American Graffiti, the ensemble, they're constantly cutting back and forth through the storyline. So it feels like it's always, like you're always there with them all the way through. And it doesn't slow down a little bit until maybe Kurt gets to Wolfman, because that's probably one of the longer segments in the movie. But that pays off too, because that's the real Wolfman Jack. And they wrote the role for him.
Yeah.
Well, and as PvP in the chat says, the soundtrack is a character.
Absolutely.
And
that was the first vintage oldie soundtrack that I ever bought.
Oh, I had the double cassette. Yeah. I didn't have it. My parents had it.
I love it.
Yeah. But it is, and the soundtrack is a character unto itself, but it's also an extension of Wolfman Jack's character.
Sure.
Mm.
Like, I just think it does, it permeates. Oh, my stars, my lights went out.
Well, because they also, for several of his segments in the movie, like the audio segments, they just used archival tapes of him rather than recording new stuff. In fact, you could still get a lot of his stuff that was broadcast off pirate radio off North Carolina at certain conventions. They trade the tapes around as collector items.
I mean, I was lucky. You know, he was on the air here where I live, so I grew up with Wolfman Jack on the radio all the time.
Yeah, he's quite a character.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Bold statement from PvP. Happy Days sucks compared to this film.
I agree.
I'm on board.
Well, yeah, because he's right. Because the big difference is that Happy Days is doing the typical sitcom thing with a bunch of conventional plots, even though it's set in the same era. Whereas this movie, there's nothing conventional about the storylines. Like the nerdiest guy they can find, but they flip it on its head where nerd gets his night. He gets to have fun. Oh, the badass street racer. Oh, he gets stuck carting around a 12-year-old. What do you know? He has fun. And then you have the very peculiar story with Kurt, who's like the nostalgic bookworm who really has nothing to be nostalgic about. And he gets abducted by a bunch of gangs, which George says the joke is that it's back when street gangs were, safe and not, violent. And they're pulling his leg all night, like, oh yeah, this guy, we killed him last night and dragged him behind the car and all this kind of crap. And those are not conventional storylines that you would find in most sitcoms. And like Scott said, the OP character, Ron Howard, in his storyline is such a dick. Oh, there's nothing wrong with seeing other people. I'm away, just so we know if we're really the one. Not that there's any doubt. It's like, well, if there's no doubt, then why do you want to do it?
Right.
Like, buddy calls him on it in the bathroom. He's like, you just want to screw around. Like, he's such a dick. But yeah, you're right, PvP. That's all. I think that's probably why Fonzie's the breakout character of Happy Days, because that's like the only fun aspect about it that,
Right.
I mean, yeah, it's a gimmick, but it's funnier compared to your generic comedy, generic sitcom plot number 429,
Sure.
Like,
Happy Days did give us Jump the Shark, so
it did.
Yeah, that's true.
And then Lucas nuked the bridge.
yeah. Right.
Oh yeah, no, that's true too. We got Nuke the Fridge. PvP says Mackenzie did some years on One Day at a Time, which I enjoyed. Yeah,
a lot of the girls and a lot of the girls in bit roles had like guest starring roles or supporting roles on TV shows like that.
Cindy Williams was Shirley.
Well, that's not a supporting role. That's a big. She had a whole spin-off series about that. I even saw what's her name?
Cindy Williams is my Marion Ravenwood. I'm sorry, I yelled over you.
Yeah. I said I also saw Lynette from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, plays Charlie's mom. She was in this movie, a little cameo, driving the VW. He was like, yeah, she wants me to tell you that she's attracted to you and is attracted to your rippling process.
That's interesting. Tripp says, after seeing this movie for the first time about 10 minutes ago, I can see where John Hughes and Kevin Smith got their inspiration. Yeah.
Another thing that this movie
inspired a lot of people.
Movies is that there's no drugs and there's no violence, really. It's like you have that little cheapy fight in the alley where he saves Toad, shooting at it. It's more like a joke, but it's not about murder and death and mayhem or doing a bunch of drugs or shit. It's like a because it's trying to feel real. It's like no, I'm not going to do a conventional teen plot. Like he said, the studio wanted him to turn it into Hot Rods to Hell. It's like, no, that's not. We're going to make this feel real, like almost like a pseudo documentary, if you will.
But that's also that's George Lucas's background. He was sort of documentarian in his early days. And in terms of the direction and cutting, close-ups, getting in on action, and it does feel, I hate to sound pretentious, but it does sound like it is a little cinema veritas at times.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it. I think he does a great job. Yeah. When he's shooting cars, George loves machines.
Yeah. And with the exception of the song playing over the end credits, the rest of the songs in the movie are all diegetic sound.
Yes. And I also
hear how it tips in volume and mix based on how far away the cars are, because it's coming out of the car radios, which is really neat.
Right.
Attention to detail.
Well, the sound design, it does. It's like, I'm sorry, I'm a fan of the video game Fallout. And so if you have the radio on your Pip-Boy, and then you walk into a place where they are also playing the radio station that you have on your Pip-Boy, and it echoes, you can hear from both speakers, and there is that sort of distance in auditory awareness. Like, that is baked into the sound design of this film, and I think it's a brilliant choice, because it doesn't feel like when you're watching this, I did not feel alone watching this movie. Watching this movie gave me the sense. I was like, oh no, there are other people here.
Yeah. Great sound design.
Yeah, and that's just like what hangout movies do.
Yes.
You know, something that you could turn on and have in the background or alone or whatever. It feels, it seems like really great. But then there's also this batshit crazy humor in it, like when Debbie's talking about the goat killer who leaves severed goat's heads next to the victims. I'm like, what the hell is this? She's just talking about it all nonchalantly, like it's just, oh yeah, it's really neat. And Terry's just petrified. I'm like, oh, this is fun. And how they're upping the soundtrack of all the crickets and the frogs to make it seem more. And that movie also, for the nighttime cinematography when they're out in the woods, it looks realistic in terms of how dark it is. Like, they're not using any camera tricks to make you see it any more than you actually would. It's like really dark. And
it's like natural lighting.
Right. I don't know if they did a day for night thing there, probably. But that I thought that, again, attention to detail is pretty good. Mm-hmm. Or Terry with all his boasting, oh yeah, I had to kill bears and I killed deer.
Oh, I feel so bad for Terry with his lies just building and building.
Well, then he ends it by saying the weirdest thing, where she's like, "Oh, why didn't you tell me you had a Vespa? It would have been great." And he's like, "Really? You should have told me. We could have wouldn't have had to have all the fun." It's like, what do you mean you want to skip the fun?
Well, no, but it wasn't that I thought it was so adorable that she did, like, after all of it, because he was trying to impress her with the car. That's how he feels that he got her.
Well, that was a great scene too, and when Steve gives him the car and he's just like having a total like, just kind of giggling at him because he's been getting how that much that means to him. Oh God.
PvP gets it. Cat Infinity says, I am looking at your Tarantino script right now. You will get it. Oh, good. Trip is going to be receiving a Tarantino script.
And the funny thing with Terry is that he did accidentally crash the Vespa into the machine at the beginning of the movie. He wasn't supposed to do that. That's why he has a delayed reaction, because he thought they'd call cut and they didn't. So the thing keeps going. Yeah. So even then, George is in the old habit of waiting for somebody to screw up the take and then like when he nearly dropped the beer bottle when the thief jumps out, like he was supposed to catch it much sooner. That was also a funny thing. Oh yeah, I had a wife too, but her name wasn't Ivy and she wasn't lost in a flood.
Like there is so much mischief that is had throughout the film.
Yeah.
And
we get a robbery and some hot wiring car. There's all kinds of cool stuff.
Yeah, the street racer, the other racer driving around looking for Milner all night long, and everybody trying to warn him about him.
Oh well, we haven't yet mentioned Harrison Ford.
Yes, and his singing.
Oh yeah, I forgot that he sang. I actually thought that this was when I saw Harrison Ford sing. I thought it was the best performance that I've ever seen Harrison Ford do. I think that this may be my favorite Harrison Ford performance.
You sure about that?
Yes.
Okay.
Not mine.
Why? What's wrong?
It's a fun character. He gets to be in the sequel. He's a motorcycle cop in San Francisco. Maybe
Is he in the
maybe they got a Dirty Harry crossover, and he could join the cops from Magnum Force.
Oh, that'd be rad. That'd be so cool.
That'd be rad.
No, but like I honestly like when I watch this, he's not Harrison Ford. He is
Bob
the guy, Hoosman or whatever his name is.
Bob Falfa.
That's him, Bob Falfa, Lorne Malvo.
It took them a while to flip that car too. They kept having to try over and over. And if you look closely, when they actually do flip it, the bumpers are already kind of bobbling off because they've already tried to roll it a few times. Apparently, they nearly killed the stunt guy doing that. But at least they made it.
That's what stunt guys do.
I still don't get though watching the movie what causes his car to roll. It's like they're driving in the straight line, and it's like barely the next shot where it just kind of it's like the plot.
Well, you're more of a gearhead than I am. But like we're talking about 1962. There's no such
thing rolling the car, even for the stunt guys to do it, because they didn't have like a roll cage or any of the protections that you get in most race cars today. You know.
Well, I'm sure they reinforced them, or maybe they just
they didn't have budget for that shit.
Threw caution to the wind. It was 1930.
In fact, they had to borrow cars from people, like the scene where Milner and Carol spray the silly string or whatever all over the car. And he's jumping back and forth all over it, and his boots are scratching up the paint. And they had to tell him, "Dude, John, you have to go easy on it because we borrowed this guy's car, and we don't have the money and the budget to pay to redo his paint job if you screw up." He's like, "Oh, I thought it was a movie car."
Well, and so those cars are not just iconic to this movie, but they're also just iconic American cars. No. Is there a certain level of like car porn?
Well, I mean, the Deuce Coupe, and the 57 Chevy isn't as pretty as the 56 Chevy, but you know, it's Falfa Chevy. And in fact, the only car which sold when the movie ended, or when they finished making the movie, was Steve's car, the Impala.
Right.
The rest of them did not sell, and the coupe was they charged $3,000 to try and sell the coupe after the movie, and that didn't sell. And that's an extremely low price even back then for a coupe like that. You should totally watch it, Daniel's Hot Topic.
Yeah, you should. It's a great film.
I don't think anybody knows where the original coupe is, actually. I mean, there's replicas around, but I don't know if anybody knows where those original cars are.
You know what? It's such an insensitive thing to say but I'm going to say it. If you love your parents, you should watch American Graffiti. And if you don't, you should probably watch American Graffiti.
Yeah, totally.
Captain Infinity has not seen this movie either. But you know, he'll retcon that.
And then sometimes there's things that are a little like borderline creepy, like the teacher at the dance, and he's talking to Kurt initially, and he's like totally flirting with all the high school girls, and he's like, "Oh, you hot young things. Oh, I mean, you young ladies." And
yeah.
Then when he's trying to convince Kurt that you should go out, this girl walks up, and I'm like, is she like about to tell him she's pregnant or something? Because I kind of feel like that's what's about to happen. Because she's like,
no.
I hate to say it, but up until maybe the mid '90s, that was kind of just the way it was.
Well, I was never a teacher.
Life,
I never had sex with. There are a couple of teachers that I would have been okay with doing that with, but no, none of them.
Well, it's funny also that you mentioned nostalgia, because that's actually a theme of the whole movie. Like, where Laurie says that Kurt had mentioned, why you leave home to find a home, leave friends you love to find new friends, give up a life to find a new life. And the whole arc being Steve and Kurt kind of switching sides by the end of the night, where Kurt's like, "Oh, I'm not sure if I'm going tomorrow," even though there's no real reason. They never really. Kurt's kind of an enigma to me, because he's the nostalgic, he's the quiet, studious bookworm, and he doesn't seem to be very sociable, but he's super nostalgic. And it's like I would expect the jock Kurt, Richard Dreyfuss, his character.
Yeah.
And
he's fucking Ferris Bueller.
And by the end of the film, it's switched where he's the one who's going to go, where Steve is the one who was gung-ho to go. Now he's going to stay for that same type of stuff. And like the Wolfman tells Kurt, you know, the Wolfman comes in here, he tells me places he's been, and he's like, have a popsicle, and he's encouraging him not to stay home in this town forever. Go take off and see the world, which is the same thing that Steve says to Kurt. You can't stay 17 forever, unlike John, because you'll turn into John Milner. But that's like the whole movie is really, and like the teacher, that the creepy teacher told Kurt, he's like, yeah, why? You went to Vermont, didn't you? He's like, yeah, I went to Middlebury in Vermont and stayed for only one semester and came back after raising all that money and everything and all that. He's like, why did you come back? He says, well, I didn't really fit in there. I came back here. And that's kind of the whole message of the movie, which is even if you strike out, you still need to go out before you come back. You can't just stay put around, you know, forever.
He said something along the lines of, I not competitive, something like not competitive.
Yeah.
And that was what you know, Dick Dreyfuss was fighting against. He was like, yes. It's easier to, and I don't think that the teacher was saying, oh no, I think you're pregnant or whatever. I think that he was banging a chick on the down low, and and it was probably a teacher that Kurt, you know, admired, and it was like, well, it's not so bad. I could be a teacher, bang high school girls, forever.
All right.
Yeah, and I get that Steve's right about that. That's kind of stuff that would be going on, but I just meant that because the girl, like the others were very public talking with him and didn't care, openly flirting in front of everybody, but the fact that the other girl wants to go like out in private made me think that she was going to say something else, like, oh, I'm pregnant, can you pay for the abortion or something like that, you know? Because he's like, and the way he's kind of putting his hand on her, I'm like, oh, that's kind of creepy. But then we see.
I thought they were making out. I thought that they were getting frisky.
Like when
I thought that they were making their first abortion.
Yeah, like when Steve tells Lori, "Oh, you should." After all that stuff you said about you watching your brother, I'm like, oh my god. So other kind of things in there.
That was funny. And then she kicks.
Yeah, that was funny. I told you never to mention that. Get the hell out of my car. But then he cares again when he finds out she got in the car with Bob, and it's like, does Steve know who Bob Falfa is? Because he seems kind of worried the minute he hears that, you know, and he just like springs into action.
Oh, this is an interesting question. I don't know. I
think it might. No. It got nominated. It got nominated for several Oscars. It didn't win any.
Oh no.
The International Cinematographers Guild did put this very high up for Haskell Wexler's work, for just the, you know, nighttime cinematography, of course, is really difficult. Like all the street lights they had to replace with big, you know, brighter bulbs, so you can actually see what was going on. And, you know, we know the story. They got kicked out of Modesto, which is funny because the Modesto kind of lauds this movie, and they built a statue to George Lucas in the town square and everything, and they host like American Graffiti nights, but they kicked him out after one night of filming because the camera rigs weren't working, and they thought, oh shit, this is going to be a drag. And so then he went to film it in Petaluma instead. Yeah. Which still, up until 2010 or something, they'd have like an annual, they might still have it, like an American Graffiti car show festival, and they'd have actors and stuff from the movie come, but I don't think they do that anymore.
Yeah, but there's a local car show. There are car shows every week.
Oh yeah, the car shows everywhere. That was just the more notable one because they actually do cruising along the same streets that they filmed. Some of which are still pretty recognizable if you go through on like Google Maps, like Jerry's Cherries, the lot's still there. The movie theater next door where they put Dementia 13 from Francis Ford Coppola's film Dementia 13. They put that on the marquee when they do when they rip the axle out from under the cop car.
Oh, cool.
On the marquee. And the Mythbusters actually tried that in an episode once to see. I can't remember if it actually worked, though.
Oh, come on. I need this myth busted.
Stand by for justice. Which is funny to see, you know, again, the totally clean-cut conservative kid go around with gangsters attacking police cars and then robbing the pinball palace. Oh, I hope you take a little bit of us with you tonight, Kurt. I believe I have. And don't forget us. Oh, you won't forget me either, sir.
PvP says, how about Toad getting a guy to rob the liquor store
Yeah.
to get Debbie to get drunk? Well,
Right.
Debbie requested inebriation
Yeah,
to make it with her. Great stuff.
Well,
Yes.
Toad was very much more innocent. Like, yes, he tried to pick her up in the car, and he kept apologizing because he kept tripping over his words when he was trying to get her in the car. But he didn't want to tell her that he was underage because of how embarrassing that was. Because she thought he was at least like 21 or something, and it's like, no, he's only 18, and so he can't get you the booze. And I didn't understand, like, when the guy's like, you need your ID to buy he didn't want to, it's like he's trying to save face in front of the clerk, so he still spends the money to buy the candy and the pen. Oh, yeah, I know, a little bit of
I just needed some things.
Yeah, this, and then he sends the other drunk goes in there and buys wine, but goes out the back.
Which is, you know what? Which is exactly what I would do.
Oh, I know. It's like Scott, snapshot of Scott in 60 years.
I didn't order PBR. Anyway.
I hadn't even heard of Old Harper's until.
I don't even know what it is. What is it?
I guess it's a whiskey. The way they described it. I think the way like what she wanted. Or how very frank she is when that other guy starts talking to her and Toad's trying to go away. He's like, "Yeah, you shut up, mister." And he's like, "You know a lot of weird guys." She's like, "I don't know him. He's just horny." In the way she says it. That was Candy Car. Yeah, she was really funny too.
Oh yeah.
Yes, Suzanne Somers is the blonde and the white T-Bird. Another car they borrowed that the owner was nervous because this young blonde girl was driving his pride and joy. I like that kind of, again, it's like another mythical thing. And that's a storyline people could relate to where it's like, the thing you've been waiting for all your life is finally here, but because of circumstances, you can't have it. Oh, I have to leave tomorrow morning. Which I didn't understand why he couldn't just postpone the flight to, like, can't you just get another, I guess maybe he couldn't get a refund. I don't know. Like,
no, but like at the very beginning of the movie, they're like, here's your ticket. This is $2,000. You show up there and everything is ready to go. And he says, I'm not sure.
Well, the 2,000 I think was for helping towards his education. The plane ticket wouldn't have cost that much.
Well, no, but I think it was like in terms of that introduction of the story structure of the situation was like, here you go, you're leaving tomorrow, and it's like, well,
and that is, and I like how everybody gives a different answer as to who she is. Like, oh, you know, Mr. Nath runs the garden store. That's his wife. He's like, no, he's 30 years older than her. Now they're married. Oh yeah, that's out of your price range. That's $30 sharing. I'm like, yeah, $30 out of his price range. But I also love that kind of somber ending where he's in the plane and everybody's saying goodbye and happy about it. Whereas Milner's like, yeah, but you'll always just be a punk. And when he looks out of the window, and of course, the last thing he's going to see of his home past life is the T-Bird. Like the one thing he didn't get to do. And it's.
Oh, I didn't even register that it was the T-Bird. Yeah. What I registered was that it was that the car was so small and it was meaningless.
I still recognize it.
No, fair enough. But still, I would now want to incorporate. Oh yeah, no, it was Suzanne Somers on her way to go to Three's Company. But it was so small and insignificant because he was going to a larger life.
Yeah.
It is like if we're talking about the second movie of George Lucas, the last shot of THX 1138 is him becoming free with the future being wide open. And same deal here.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and we'll revisit that same idea in Star Wars with the iconic.
I've never seen it.
Yeah,
I'm sure, but yeah, and it's kind of interesting that a movie which is trying to be nostalgic, because even cruising didn't exist anymore by 1972 when they filmed it. That in and of itself, the movie is about nostalgia, because Kurt is more or less pushed as the main protagonist, because he's the one who gets to meet the Wizard of Oz at the end of the story. He's the one whose story gets the big climax, so to speak. And yeah, I know Harrison Ford kind of said oh yeah, the Bob Falfa character is responsible for the success of the movie. It's like, no, he brings some of the characters together. He doesn't bring all of the characters together at the end. But it's really the Wolfman Jack story. So Kurt is like THX, the character, which is like Luke Skywalker, the character. Like, you want to stay in this town forever? You want to do this, or you want to get the hell out and do so? It's like all three of those characters are different versions of the same thing. But this movie in particular, I feel, is more about nostalgia and providing a reason for why you don't want to let go. Whereas we see Luke Skywalker is somebody who just wants to get the hell out of the Dodge and is constantly daydreaming about everything. THX is somebody living in such an oppressive environment, he just has to get out because it's just as dark as it can be. Whereas American Graffiti actually provides something a bit more wholesome that do you necessarily want to run away from this?
Right.
And I think the reason
both of the other movies, the circumstances in which the characters find themselves are not good.
Right.
This shows you the other side, right? Like, this is something that you really have to put thought into whether you want to leave, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not bad. It's not horrible conditions. It's not oppressive. There's always certain perceived oppressions when you're a teenager, right?
Yeah.
But still, it's the more wholesome goodness of what you could be leaving behind.
Yeah.
Instead of a moisture farm or an oppressive, the oppressive state.
Well, I think that's also due in part for why the movie was so successful, because it's very relatable in that way. Mm-hmm. Like, even not down to specifics, but the general conceit of American teenagers, you eventually have to leave the nest, so to speak, and take off, and whether or not you're going to roll the dice. But he also mentions that, well, there's no rush to leave right now, kind of thing. Which made me think of the UK, where they have what they call a gap year. To clear your head.
Every country on earth has a gap year if they have universities. You can skip a year no matter what. It's not.
No, but it's sort of like a more of an accepted thing that a hell of a lot more people do overseas.
What do you mean? You never like quit, took a sabbatical?
In America, that's not a normal thing. In the United States, it's not a normal thing to do.
Well, look at you working very hard.
Yeah, that's not really a thing here. So.
Well, in Canada, we're lazy. In the Commonwealth,
Well, like, even Milner says to one of the girls that he's trying to pick up, she's like, "Oh, do you know such and such?" He's like, "Oh, yeah, we had a couple classes at JC together." So maybe he goes to junior college, or maybe he was just saying that because he wants to, because he seems to know the guys at the auto shop or the gas station, But yeah, so it's like a movie about nostalgia wrapped in something nostalgic that even 50 years later still resonates because the characters are well written. Whereas at the time it was probably captivating because, oh wow, we remember this time because we lived it. Whereas nowadays, people like us who didn't live that, it's like we connect more with the characters, but overall concept and thinking of the equivalent. Like, what did we leave behind? Like, again, cruising wasn't our thing. Like, the idea, I remember even as a little kid watching this for the first time, that some people would park their cars, get into a car with potentially a complete stranger, and just drive off. It's like acceptable thing.
I think what you're talking about is timeless themes. Timeless themes with stories well told. It transcends the eras in which those stories may be written in or shown in.
DVB says Milner's license plate in the movie was THX 138. Did you catch that, Scott?
I did not. I did not catch that.
You won better.
Yeah, you got the license plate.
All right.
Nice.
Oh, you son of a bitch. And I'm doing that in like an Arnold Schwarzenegger car.
Yes, I had to have. Even's got the 1962 registration.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Nice.
I needed that.
You should put that on your Red Ryder wagon.
Yeah. I still remember the day that they had
Radio Flyer.
Radio Flyer. Red Ryder is the BB gun.
I still remember the day they had a lot of the actors up in Sacramento for a con, and I could not make it work because of work. And I was kicking myself so much. I so wanted to go down there because they had like meet and greets, cheap. Oh, it would have been great. Events conspiring against you again. Yes, the CHX 138. That was cool. Which of course is an Easter egg in all of George's movies.
Yeah.
But yeah,
yes.
And again, a lot of the songs I still love them because I still have them. Now I got them on my iPods now from CDs and beyond that. But and like I said, you can still go down there and see a lot of the places. Some of them haven't changed much. The facade, surprisingly enough, like the old radio station where Wolfman Jack is at this little station on Emeryville, right by the bridge, just kind of sitting there abandoned behind a chain link fence. And the stories they tell in the movie of how, oh yeah, he broadcast out of Mexico or he broadcast out in the ocean, blah, blah, blah. Those were like actual rumors about Wolfman Jack that had been circulating because he was such a character. Whereas I guess at the time, according to George, he was broadcasting near Modesto, which is why he was able to approach him. Like he's like, yeah, he used to broadcast right out of town and was like everybody kind of people knew that.
Well, okay. So how did you guys feel about American Graffiti, the special edition with the new CGI effects?
There's no special edition.
Yeah.
The re-release.
Technically, you could say there is because theatrical cut, they cut 2 scenes out. They cut the scene where
I was kidding. You're shitting me.
No, so the studio the studio hated the movie, and
Okay.
Coppola scolded them, saying you should be thanking this man for this movie they just made. And being dicks, they just decided to cut 2 scenes. The scene where after Terry gets in the car accident, the fender bender that he causes, he parks by that giant chair, and the car salesman passes. They cut the scene with the salesman.
Why?
And they cut the scene where Bob Falfa sings "You Will See a Stranger." They cut that scene as well.
You're kidding me. Those are great. They had
There was
characters in
no
the
reason why
film.
they cut it. He put it back in the home media version, and he put his intended version back in theaters. So that's the studio version doesn't exist anymore. I've seen it twice in theaters now. I got lucky. I saw it like 12 years ago, and then I saw it just last. Great.
So you're saying that the original is no longer available, much like other George Lucas works.
Well, unlike the Star Wars originals, in American Graffiti's case, his original was the one that was messed with by the studio, so they put out what would be called the studio cut, and now there's the George Lucas cut that that version.
Well, in both cuts, Han shot first. So.
Yeah. Oh,
in fact,
totally.
there's a photo of George Lucas wearing a T-shirt that says Han shot first.
I was trying to construct a Greedo joke from the car wreck.
They did the same thing at THX, by the way. They actually did cut like 1 or 2 scenes that George put back into the special edition DVD from 2004. I can't remember what scenes they were, but they did the same thing to him there. So that his resentment with the studio tampering with things, like if you don't like the whole movie, then what's the purpose of cutting these scenes if it still meets the time? Like there's no reason to do it. No. And one of George's mantras for how dumb he thought the studio was that in THX's case, they wanted to take the scene in the prison with all the freaks, as he called it. But we're going to put the freaks up front because that's what the studio executive said. That'll make the movie more interesting. It'll engage the audience. He's like, no, it's like, but that's the type of stupid shit. And of course, when the movie became a big hit, the executives didn't want to say nothing to George after they all doubted it because they were going to dump it on TV, make it a TV movie after they watched it because they thought it was so terrible. Yeah.
Trip gets my vernacular, like literally, like generally, like
Yeah, totally.
Dope.
Absolutely.
But yeah, they filmed it from late June through June 26th through August 4th, 1972. So they did film in the summer. I wish that J.W. Rensler had done a book about the making of that movie because that seems like a movie that was really fun. Like I know that they said that Bo Hopkins, Paul Lamont, and Harrison Ford all got thrown out of the hotel because they would be climbing up on the Holiday Inn signs and wreaking havoc. And Paul grabbed Richard Dreyfuss one day and threw him in the pool and didn't realize it was the shallow end, and he gave him a black eye.
Oh, man.
And apparently you can actually see it when he's trying to sneak up to attach the cable to the back of the cop car. They show him leaning behind one of the cars, and you could tell he's wearing a little bit of makeup to try and hide the shiner that he got.
Yeah, I thought he had got roughed up by the guys a little bit.
Yeah, and then somebody set a fire in George Lucas's room in the hotel.
That was me.
Yeah, so it was like, that sounds like it was a really fun movie to actually make and be a part of.
Totally.
And the whole Pharaoh storyline is great because it's just so ridiculous, but it's because of how gullible Kurt is, but and how they never explicitly tell you that they're lying because they trust that you're smart enough to know that, which I like it when a movie trusts the audience's intelligence.
Yeah, but also it was kind of like gang hazing, and like once if Kurt was gonna do the shit that they wanted him to do, not back down, and that I think that was part of his character's exploration of, should I stay or should I go now? And it's like, well, I just did everything awesome and I saw the success that could come, but no, I'm gonna go. And then at the end, like, you get the closing credits of our 4 protagonists, and Kurt is a successful writer living somewhere in Canada.
Which just sounds really boring.
Well, it makes him sound like a draft dodger.
Didn't he also play the adult version of Gordy from Stand By Me, who's also a writer living in Canada? At the end of that story?
Well, he was the narrator of the movie Stand By Me. I don't know if it was.
And he's like writing a story on a typewriter at the end of the movie. It's revealed that he's writing a book.
Totally.
It's like it's the same thing there, where Steve has the life of becoming an insurance salesman in Modesto.
Do we have a George Lucas, Stephen King cinematic universe going on?
Crossover?
Oh, and then it gets even better. In the sequel, John Milner is at a drag race strip, and he's doing the drag racing for the day. And the Swedish lady, who doesn't speak a word of English, is there, and she hangs out with him all day long. And the movie ends with him getting killed, but his storyline ends with him getting killed by the drunk driver. You see it. You only see his car cresting the hill, and then you hear the crash. He is the one who ended up, the Swedish actress playing his, the girl hanging out there. She's the one who ended up collecting the reward for ratting out Whitey Bulger in Santa Monica in 2011.
You're kidding.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. He went to the hair salon where his girlfriend was all the time, and she saw an episode of America's Most Wanted. She died.
Oh, that's hilarious.
It is. So it's like the connected universes. Says he thrown in there too.
PvP has my back.
I didn't say Canada is boring as a country, but in terms of just how there's no real detail, he's a writer living in Canada, and I'm like, why did they specify that he's living in Canada? Like that, it just sounds kind of like Steve. Steve is an insurance salesman in Modesto. Like, that sounds kind of boring. And what do you know? His storyline from the sequel is pretty weak.
It does. Yes.
This is also true. Not all that exciting either.
Yeah.
Not this, Steve. We're talking about Opie.
Yeah, we're talking about Opie. Yeah. Opie. His storyline in the sequel is just like, it's just like.
Well, I've never seen the sequel. Like, is it worth watching?
I mean, it is one of the weirdest movies. I remember he mentions it on the Phantom Menace making of documentary. He's like, Frank Oz was asking him what he thought the business would be like for Phantom Menace. I think it's going to be big. He's like, well, you never know. I made American Graffiti. I made $100 million, and then more American Graffiti made 10 cents. But
did he direct it?
No, it was somebody else. It was released in 1979. He was busy.
I just remember it just being weird.
It's just very. It's wildly experimental, but it's very weird. And I didn't buy that Debbie would become a total hippie in like the late, because each story takes place on New Year's Eve in a different year in the 60s. And I didn't buy that from 1962 through by 1967 in 5 years' time that Debbie would just be a hippie. It's like, no. Yeah, and the other weird things. It's just, again, I like Toad's story. Or Toad actually hooks up with the leader of the Pharaohs, Bo Hopkins of Vietnam. And they're both together in the same unit. That's actually a good storyline. It's pretty funny.
Well, he dies.
No, he doesn't.
But according to the end, he was
at the end of this the sequel. Spoilers: he fakes his death because he and Bo want to frag the officer. They hate their officer just about giving him these suicidal orders, but deciding that's probably a bad idea. They work together, and Bo is actually killed in a helicopter along the river in Nam. But Toad ends up faking his own death and backpacking to Europe from Vietnam.
PvP says, do not insult my intelligence. And to that, I would like to insult your intelligence. Thank you for being a member of the Fantasmagorium show. You're a valued member of our audience. Thank you so much, PvP. This is why I should not be on camera. So is that it? We're done with American Graffiti?
You should watch the screen test if you ever get a chance. There were some really dark scenes in there that was really
I'll have to look
but
that up on YouTube.
Yeah, it's something, all right. But yeah, I think it's like
PvP. I apologize if I did insult your intelligence. It wasn't my intention, except it was.
so it's like a movie where it's like it still has this universal appeal, even though it's not, of our time.
Yeah.
And that's something I think movies need to get back to, finding a way to tell a timeless story, even if it's in a very restricted time space. Like, don't be too contemporary because it ages out immediately.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But again, part of the reason why I was sort of brief with my introduction and saying it captured an era, it really did with its soundtrack. Like, it's almost one of those marketing things that would blossom into the action figures of Star Wars, but like having so many American rock songs, like I don't want to say they're rock songs, but at the time they were. And Milner said rock died with Buddy Holly.
That's a great sentiment too, because at the time the movie's set in 1962, whereas Buddy Holly died February 69 or 59, so that's 3.5 years between that. And he's like, yeah, there wasn't great rock and roll between 59 and 62. So he's like, I don't like that so much shit.
And it does sort of feel like the era. I was born in 78, and my parents had this double cassette. Like this was when you put on the oldies radio station, it sounded like American Graffiti.
Yeah.
The only thing that was missing was Wolfman Jack.
Yeah, it was definitely a snapshot, right?
Yeah.
So it captured the era. It also goes back to what I said earlier. It's timeless storytelling that transcends that snapshot in time.
Yeah. I also found it interesting that even though they filmed at the former Mel's in San Francisco, they didn't use their name. They just called it Burger City. But if you go to any Mel's diner today, it's the whole entire thing is American Graffiti themed, with all behind the scenes framed all around. They got the autograph posters, everything. It's like they're not going to let you use the name in the movie, but once it became popular, you can try to we'll host your movie now.
Right.
And what an incredible opening title sequence as well. Again, introducing to that like echo and the music and the color and the lighting. It is gorgeous. It is gorgeous.
Yeah.
And I'm still perplexed as to why. I mean, yeah, I saw, Charlie Martin Smith was in a couple more notable movies in the 80s. He went on to be a director. Paul Amat didn't really take off. I thought he would have, because he was really great in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of, it's interesting.
Cindy Williams died.
Yeah.
What?
Cindy Williams.
Well, that was recent. Yeah. Same with Bo Hopkins. And Manuel Padilla, who played not Ants, but the other one, the short one in the Pharaohs. Actually, a lot of those side characters.
We just lost last year, I think, right?
Oh, you're right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Were you guys were you guys surprised how attractive Richard Dreyfuss was as a young man?
I didn't.
Do you find him attractive or
no?
Not at all.
I have nothing against it. No. I know he hated his wardrobe in that movie too. He's like, George, this just makes me look nerdy and geeky. Can I wear something else?
I thought he looked great. I thought his he was heftier. He looked more like Rudy.
I like the story after the movie came out. He and one of the studio people happened to be in line for a different movie, and they were talking about, I guess it didn't work out, whatever. And this other girl was in the back. It's like, hey, I just saw that movie. That was great. Because it hadn't yet taken off, because back then obviously it didn't matter what opening weekend was, because that wasn't really a thing yet, because like Steve said, these things were around for years, but it did take off.
Trip says, if you're wrapping up the show, gotta tell you this was a great stream. Okay. If not, I'm staying till the end.
Cool.
And PvP follows up with definition of masterpiece. You can't add or take away from it to make it better.
100%.
I
And
agree.
Yeah.
If George Lucas ever made a masterpiece, this is it.
I would say so.
It did get a Best Picture nomination.
What?
I believe it did.
I think so too. But
Yeah, it didn't win.
Facts don't care about your feelings, Cat.
Right.
But yeah, that's why, as much as I love Star Wars, as much of a Star Wars geek I am, I think this is his best film.
I love Star Wars too. I think you hold it American Graffiti a little higher than Star Wars.
Yeah, it was nominated for
just the other way around.
It was nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Supporting Actress for Candy Clark, who played Debbie, and the formerly known category of Best Story and Screenplay based on factual material or material not previously produced or published, which is now called the Original Screenplay. And Best Film Editing. It should have won. I think it should have won it that year. Yeah, but it didn't win any of those.
So it was. It wasn't going. The reason why it wasn't going to win was because of the Sting won that year.
Yeah,
and that movie.
Oh man,
another masterpiece. So it was masterpiece.
Oh, you know what? I think if you were to put up the Sting and what a great double feature, the Sting and American Graffiti, but the advantage goes to the Sting for the original score.
Well, yes. And so Ingmar Bergman had Cries and Whispers out.
Never seen it.
William Peter Blatty had The Exorcist out that year. That was also in the mix. And then a movie called A Touch of Class that I don't remember.
Well, I've never heard of it. Who was in it?
Don't know. Don't care.
No, you're supposed to say my mom.
Oh, your mom was in it?
Yes, she was in it. She won an Oscar.
And I love this poster by one of the guys, by Mort Drucker, who worked for Mad Magazine for like 50 years.
Oh, for sure. That's why. Yeah, that I love it. Oh my stars! So how was the like? How did it look?
I really liked.
I watched it on DVD.
A lot of people complained about it, but here's the thing: the movie was shot on very cheap film stock, so it was shot for like $300,000. Shot at night, which is even more difficult with that stock, and I think it's really good. It doesn't. Yeah, the grain has mostly been scrubbed away, but there wasn't a ton of grain on the Blu-ray either. It was like inconsistent because again, you're dealing with cheaper film stock, and there's only so much you can do with it. But I think it looks great. The colors are vibrant and popping much more than the Blu-ray. And again, people have to understand like what the material, the actual stock that you're working with, and the condition of the print before saying, "This is crap." It's like no.
So if you haven't seen the film and you want to, and you're not going to buy the physical copy, I do believe it's streaming on Netflix right now, depending on where you live.
Yeah, the reason
in North America, it's streaming. I think it's streaming on Netflix, so you can check it out if you want.
Well, I'm gonna watch it again with the audio commentary on the DVD. I want to hear what George has to. What does he have to say for himself?
You're right. It's on Netflix.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
The audio commentary is good because it's like basically another rundown of the making of documentary, which is on both the DVD and the special edition DVD, which is double-sided. With one side A was American Graffiti and the making of documentary, and side B was more American Graffiti. How creative for a sequel title.
And this is where we wanted to get Yoda.
Yeah.
But
I asked you both earlier what your favorite scene was. Mine is very cliche. I like the final race is my favorite scene.
Oh, it's bitchin'. It's on par with like Road Warrior.
It's on par with a lot of good car race scenes for sure.
Yeah, Freight's Road out in Petaluma. Yeah, my favorite scene. Yeah, I mean, there's so many funny scenes to pick that for the movie being funny, but I do like when Kurt goes to see Wolfman Jack and he lies and says, "Oh, he only comes in here every once in a while to drop off tapes. Oh, I can't get a dedication in until Tuesday or something," and he's just not wanting to spill the beans. And after imparting his wisdom, Kurt sees that it's him, but he doesn't. He just smiles. It's like, oh, it's the man behind the curtain.
It's so funny. The very first time I saw Baby Driver, it reminded me. It felt so much like American Graffiti, in a way, right? Completely different movie, obviously, but all of the, having the music be a character in the movie, building scenes around songs, music. It's one of the only times I've been to a movie that influenced it. So it was crazy.
And you're right. The Dazed and Confused is clearly, the 70s version of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
With the character, May 31st, 1976. You got the same kind of thing going on there. I wish they'd have a movie like this for every decade. I don't know what I would pick from the 80s as.
Like what? Needle Drop?
Breakfast Club?
But one, it would have to be some ensemble film that kind of,
it's a good question.
Breakfast Club, probably for me.
I'd go Ferris Bueller.
Either one.
But which one do you take?
All of the Hughes movies, right?
Ferris Bueller is what I would say.
That one I think is too fantastical.
Well, it's a hangout movie over the course of a day. And
right, but
this
it also
is a hangout movie over the course of a night. So I don't know. I put him aside. I still, you know what? And here's something is that I would say that American Graffiti, I just saw it today, so maybe I'm super excited, but I would say I would say American Graffiti is a better movie than Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Someone dig me out of this.
These movies are just really fun, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Really fun movies. So.
And they do work with very 80s archetypes.
Right.
Like Breakfast
Club being an example. I don't know if they were shooting for Oscars there. I think they were just making awesome, fun movies.
Right. Well, that's the thing that's surprising about Graffiti is that he wasn't trying to make an award-winning movie either. It just kind of resonated.
He was trying to make a normal movie.
Yeah.
He wasn't trying to do.
What it was, the way Coppola put it was that, George, can't you make something warm and fuzzy? Because that was his gentle way of saying, maybe we shouldn't have started with this for American Zoetrope. To do something warm and fuzzy. And the thing is, he said, I'll pay for it if you do this. And when he told him the title, Francis like Graffiti, he was like, people thought, was this about feet? Like, what the hell does that mean? Because graffiti as a concept wasn't really a thing, which I thought was kind of funny. But he loved it. He's like, we showed it to the executives and they didn't know what to do with it. And I was worried. I'm like, this is so funny. But they didn't have to have any shenanigans like stationing people under the water tower to go steal the movie this time.
Right.
Which I don't know why in THX's case that it would. They mentioned that they were under the Warner Brothers water tower, even though that was a Fox movie. Kurt seeing Real Wolfman, Great Wizard of Oz, exactly PvP. Yes, it is. And that's the thing that we don't really have anymore either. Like the radio is still around, but you don't have enigmatic, mysterious personalities like that everybody turns into.
Yeah. Shut your face.
What?
You are one of these enigmatic personalities that are coming through the airwaves.
They know who we are and what we're up to. We're on camera a lot. We've told them everything about our likes and dislikes. Like Wolfman just says these funny things while playing songs. You don't really know anything about him or his life.
That was the worst Wolfman impression. So I want a cigarette. Do you guys have anything to say about the?
You want to wrap it up?
Well, you can do whatever you want. I just want a cigarette. So if you want to wrap it up, that's cool. If you want to give me
I think I've said everything I can say about the movie. Great movie. I think everybody should go see it or see it again.
We do have a rating system. What is the rating system again?
10 out of 10, 12 out of 10. I love this movie. Oh, what were
but what was the rating system?
Oh, like how many revs do we get? Like a V8s or V6, like a Vs.
Was it V6s or V? Yeah, no, V10.
V10, or I'll give it a V. Hey, since V12 is now a thing, I will give it a V12
Right.
out of 10.
Oh, I like it. V12.
Yeah.
V10 for sure.
Yes.
No, this is actually, I think, out of all of the, and I think I've seen every George Lucas movie now. Yeah, I think this is my favorite. I admire THX, and I love Star Wars. I love Star Wars.
I do too.
But American Graffiti, it transcends both my appreciation technically with my emotional appreciation. Like it does both.
We'll talk about Star Wars.
I think it's almost perfect.
It's almost perfect. It's a really good film. If it's not a perfect 10, it's 9.9. You know?
Yeah. What am
I think this one's a perfect film.
You would say it's perfect.
Yeah, like I agree with what PvP said. I think his definition of what a masterpiece is really accurate. Like it's a movie where you would not add or cut a single thing to it.
Yes.
Because it's perfect as is.
Fucking love it. Yeah, high five.
Yes. God, I remember that's when my obsession with classic cars started. I remember when I got the special edition DVD around 2007. That's when I got my classic car. And started going to car shows a lot more and working on cars and stuff, and becoming gearhead.
Yeah.
So cool. Trip says, yeah, great flick, 10 out of 10. Yep. PvP, in memory of his dear sister, 10 out of 10, A+, perfection. And it's a rare film that gets his top rating. And as usual, Captain Infinity has not seen the square root of jack squat. Get off my lawn. And so next week,
we will be going to that galaxy far, far away. The original trip to the galaxy far, far away.
We're going to be talking about the Acolyte.
No.
Same bat channel. No, we won't be talking about that dumpster fire. Thank you very much.
I've heard it's good.
You've heard wrong.
No, I'm being contrary. But next week we are doing Star Wars. We're doing the original 1977 Star Wars.
Yeah, so we'll talk about Star Wars next week.
I can't remember. What did we say our sign-off was? I still
I remember.
Graffiti, but we'll talk about that next week.
Okay, so we're going to see if I can get Steve to say the catchphrase. Okay. I have to find the exit music. There we are. Steve, what did people say to make the hyperdrive go?
Punch it!
Punch it. All right.
Yeah, no, we're still live. I can't believe it took you so long to figure out punch it.
So we're going to start the